Francis was a gentleman. Right? I mean, we're dealing with a death. And we have to mourn this, and we want to be really appropriate. Be real careful about how you speak about somebody once they're gone. Can we agree on that? Now, I get, in particular for those of you that have lost loved ones, for me to call this a death is a stretch, but it is the death of a career. So if you're a friend or a family member and you lose that person to the other side, or if you're just a fan of the sport and your favorite athlete is now gone, it's still the death and there's still a mourning process and this is still going on. You would still watch your tongue, be very careful how you spoke about them. The story of Francis Ngannou was not ongoing from this point. This is not a new chapter and let's see what tomorrow brings. That's not what this is. So be real careful about how you speak about him. This is a down time for some. And if you want to remember him fondly, I think that would be fair. This was a guy that came from nothing and out of nowhere. Got absolutely manhandled by Stipe Miocic, worked his way back to him, and then did the manhandling. I mean, this really is a success story. And I will also tell you, Francis remained a gentleman. He will leave this part of his life behind, but he will do it with his integrity intact. Francis is a very intimidating guy, but he didn't come out and yell. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten people. I didn't even hear him use profanity. He wanted something that was unreasonable. No, he wasn't attempting to be a jerk. He thought it was reasonable. That really is the litmus test, right? Would you do, if you were in this other person's spot, would you do what you're asking for? If your answer is yes, you've now passed the test. He thought he was being reasonable. Fair enough. We don't need to hash that out. I'm just sharing for you. I'll word it to you guys like this. There is nothing in life where perception is not reality, but there is nothing in life where perception being reality is more obvious and more under a microscope than this sport. Now, the story of Francis Ngannou does not come to a screeching halt today. The story, and all I'm talking about is hope, right? But hope will keep a guy alive. I watched a man become president one time just on hope. It's a big deal. And while hope is not a strategy, it is a boost. It is a motivation. It will drive you in a straight direction. And hope for Francis is not gone today. Hope for Francis is gone the night Jon Jones stomps out Ciryl Gane. When Jon Jones breezes through a guy that Francis came from behind to barely beat, that is when the Francis story comes to an end. If Ciryl was to go out and defeat Jon, if Ciryl was to go out and go right through Jon, the story of Francis and the argument that he's the greatest lives on. That's just how this works. There's no hater on any side of that. There's no fan on either side of that. That's just how this works. So you can still keep your fingers crossed, right? You're dealing with a lot. The people that have been filming Francis in practice and putting out those videos, those are not Francis's friends. Francis is over 300 pounds. His reactions are terrible. He looks exhausted, right? It's just one of those things. There's certain things. If you're the colonel and you're overseeing Elvis's career, there's certain pieces of footage you don't put out of the king. So you don't have a whole lot that you can go on Francis. You got a guy who is grossly over the weight limit, who is well out of his athletic prime. Now, he's got the right to be. He hurt his knee. But those training footages need to remain private because you're dealing with perception, which is becoming our reality. So who are you going to have Francis fight? Right? The one thing, no matter how a negotiation goes, as long as we're still connected, I still got a chance. If I'm a salesman and you're telling me no, I still got a chance. I will see people make this mistake in relationships all the time. Oh, the girl, she hates me. The girl hates me. Hey, if she hates you, you still got a chance. when she becomes indifferent, when she doesn't love you or hate you, she does not have an emotion either way, she does not care, that's when you're done. And the one thing that will keep Francis and the Ultimate Fighting Championship connected, the one and only umbilical cord, is the right to match. So when I have made my final stand, and I've let you know I've made my final stand, we are still connected through the match clause. So when the UFC gave that up, the UFC cut that cord. They ended that lifeline. So it now becomes a question of what are you going to go and do? If you were given good advice, right? If your managers told you, don't sign this, we need a carve out, we have a big boxing match coming up. If those things were true, then that's exactly what you'll go and do next. You'll go do a big fight. It'll be in a boxing match. You'll make a whole bunch of money. If that information was true. If test the free market, there's better deals out there. There's more exposure that I can get you. There's more money that I can get you. There's more opportunities. And that's the only reason you wouldn't resign. If those things are true, then they'll still be true today. He'll go out and he'll grab those. And everything will be wonderful. But the one thing that kept them connected has now been severed. So what does he do now? And what he does today doesn't have to be the same answer that he does 5 months from now. Though he couldn't come to the table today, a couple of months from now, there might be a seat. And if Jon Jones wins, it would keep an opportunity alive. But if Ciryl wins, there's no reason to have him back. It's just an observation. It's not one that we have an answer to today, but we don't need an answer to it today. Just going to identify that it happened. We're going to take a couple of months. We're going to look back on it. You can't get this kind of analysis anywhere. You can't get this anywhere. And for that, guys, you're welcome.